This is a chessboard. Chess is a game where you must work to manipulate your opponent's pieces into ideal locations compared to your pieces. Barging in simply isn't an option. If you do that, your piece is going to quickly get captured. And Splatoon works in a very similar way. The game requires you to position enemies properly to splat them, and if you don't, you will be punished. For example, if I have a sploosh and my enemy over here has a Hydra, I'll be splatted easily. However, if I move around him or bring him down to me, I'll be able to easily fight him. Back to the chessboard, what happens if we mess with their movement? Take these two pawns. If they both move at their maximum level, they meet in the middle after just one move. If we slow them down, they both take 2 moves, but are both equal. However, if we speed them up to be able to move 3 spaces out of their starting positions, suddenly white is able to move farther than black. That's a pretty significant change to the game. However, this is the same change as just making the board smaller by 1 tile on each side. Now, let's look at knights. Giving knights an extra tile of movement makes the game absolutely nuts. It's far more action-packed and there's less downtime between movement of pieces. Sound familiar? Well, it's a common argument that Splatoon 3 maps are smaller. If you count up all the paintable surfaces Splatoon maps and average them, Splatoon 3's maps are not significantly smaller than in the other games. The difference is in player movement. In Splatoon 1, there were only 6 movement options. These were running, jumping, swimming, rolling, strafing, and climbing. The fastest of these are swimming, but it had a hard cap on it. This meant that fights took place far apart from each other. There was significant downtime between fights. Maps felt bigger because of this, and a lot more was put on the individual player instead of the whole team. Splatoon 2 did many things to speed up the game. They added dually rolling, umbrella trails, they increased the speed of rolling, they added charge storing, made the ink brushes immune to enemy ink, and added the drop roller ability. Furthermore, many more specials revolved around movement. While Splatoon 1 only had one fast special, Kraken, Splatoon 2 had Inkjet, Ultra Stamp, and Baller, which could all move around the map very quickly. On this chessboard, when the pieces move farther, there is less setting up that needs to be done. Games are quicker, but something is lost. That's setting up. For example, take this pawn on its way to becoming a queen. All the opposing side has to stop it is a bishop. The solution to this scenario is to simply put the bishop diagonal to the pawn to force it to stop moving or else be captured. However, if we let the pawn choose to move 2 spots instead of 1, the pawn cannot be stopped any longer, for it can simply outmaneuver the bishop. But if we allow the bishop to move over 1 tile before moving diagonally, the bishop is unable to stop the pawn even if the pawn is able to move 2 spaces. With Splatoon heavily relying on manipulating enemy positions to eventually splat them, how can this be rectified in a faster game? The answer is designing the stage well. Speeding the game up is ruinous to chess because the entire game takes place on an open board. By adding flank routes, alternate routes, height, cover, grates, and ramps, it's possible to keep a balanced and fun game as it spreads people out and allows fights to take place over more specific locations instead of all around the board. Teammates can't as easily come to help you. For example, let's look at Inkblot Art Academy. The increase in movement potential should make chargers useless, but due to level geometry, a team member has to flank the charger instead of taking it head on. This is risky because the charger can catch the flank, another team member can catch the flank, and a charger has time to react because you can't just directly head up to it, it takes time to get to the charger. So the speed of the game isn't a problem when the stages are designed around a fast game. What if it isn't designed around a fast game? Splatoon 3 added some major changes, increasing player speed, Squid Surge, Squid Roll, and Splatana charges. As the speed of the game increased, it is important to have good stage design to accommodate the increase. However, stage design would be simplified. Take Mahi Mahi Turf War for example. There are no flank routes avoiding mid in the entire map. Verticality is nearly non-existent and cover is incredibly sparse. This favors quick movement heavily to a fault. Manipulating your opponent isn't nearly as interesting as it's significantly downplayed for just running into them. Without interesting and varied terrain, you can manipulate yourself in relation to your enemy, but you have a harder time manipulating your enemy in relation to yourself. Manipulating your enemy is a core component of chess, and it wouldn't be the same game without it. By making changes to gameplay and changes to maps that fundamentally oppose each other, Splatoon 3 has been made a worse game. If every piece could move almost anywhere in chess, it'd be nearly impossible to try and position yourself against an enemy, as they'll be able to hit you in almost any scenario. There's only attack, attack, and attack some more. Furthermore, simple maps provide balance issues. Chargers are disproportionately strong in simple maps due to the lack of cover and flank routes. Same with splatlings. Slow moving weapons are worse, and this is no fault of the weapon, it's the fault of the map. This is because in open maps, terrain is easier to traverse and fights are going to have more variables outside player control. Chargers can not only splat easier, they can take control of more area. There are less ways to enter mid, making it easy for the enemy team to close in on yours. Even worse, look at Scorched Gorge splat zones. All routes are a one-way into mid, the grates are very slow for returning to spawn, and the flank barely goes anywhere. This makes it way too easy to push up and lock a team out of mid. What's interesting is that even though the stages aren't smaller on average, they feel smaller because the speed is higher, and many areas simply do not matter to the game. For example, you spawn farther out, meaning a lot of spawn just isn't used anymore. Thus, the stage design in Splatoon 3 does not reflect the gameplay changes, and the game as a whole suffers. If you were to put Splatoon 3 maps into Splatoon 1, while they would be worse than the already existing Splatoon 1 maps, they wouldn't be problematic. A lack of flank routes is fine if it takes a while to cover the distance to both routes. Open areas are fine if you can still manipulate the enemy's position, but that simply isn't possible in Splatoon 3 in the same way it used to be. The degradation is very unfortunate, but hopefully Nintendo will recognize the issues and fix some of the worst offenders. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and ring the bell button if possible. Thank you so much for 500 subscribers. It's been a goal of mine for a long time. And bye.